Okay guys, so I'm here in DuBois, Wyoming. This big museum, which is actually privately funded and owned by a gentleman named Stark, not Tony Stark from the Iron Man stuff. I believe that's his name. Funded all of this, and it's this massive museum, and you're gonna see tons and tons of vehicles, and it's just really, really cool. I'm kind of rushing through it, so hopefully it's not too big of a deal. There are tons of tanks and troop transports. There's a helicopter. There was an airplane in there. I'm gonna go over here and see what else there is outside. There's a big old pavilion. There's still a whole wing they're building right now and working on, so that's not even open yet. There's tons of historical stuff, which I won't take the time to film all of those panels and stuff, but you can come here on your own and read all those. Mainly I was just trying to show you as many cool vehicles as possible, but it's really cool. I think it cost me 12 bucks to get in or something like that. But it's an awesome museum, and hope you enjoy the field trips. So there's something interesting. It shows production plants building all of these things, you know, the factories that produce them. So during World War II, a lot of our factories were flipped into producing these types of vehicles and clothing and food and everything for all of our armies around the world. I have relatives who worked in factories during the wars, and it was kind of interesting that some people, their big war effort was working in the factories, not necessarily fighting in the war. So something we don't think about all the time, but so much of this had to be produced. So there's a mortar carrier. Try not to be too repetitious with this stuff, but you can press pause and read that. So it looks like they have mortars stored in the sides there. Not very fancy seats, not very fancy interior. It's just clean and simple and easy to fix. Here's a Sherman tank. I think this is a famous specification of tank. Sandbags on the front to help protect from machine gun fire and hitting and tearing into the front. And press pause and read that. And press pause and read that. You see that big old tip on the front there. Sometimes they put names on them, I think. This one was named Gideon. And you see all that mechanical work that went into developing these and making sure they could go through rain and snow and mud and whatever else. Machine gunner on top, big old turret. That thing, the whole top rotates. You can press pause and read that. And you can press pause and read that. Big machine gun on top. So yeah, this is the famous one. You can press pause and read that. You can press pause and read that. So the Sherman tanks, I remember reading about those a lot. The Sorcerer. So it looks like, I was just thinking, how did these guys see to shoot out of that port there? But there's the little visual, so they must have looked through some type of scope that allowed them to see out, and then they use some type of hand levers to crank that around and such. all these cool tanks, interesting tanks. I had a friend who was in the Army 20 years ago, and he was in a tank battalion or whatever. He is a tank driver, and he said it was the worst thing in the world being down inside those things. You just slam around, and often his tank, he had to stand up, and he just banged around on his ribs, be all bruised. And he said it was hot and it was scary and miserable. He was never in a battle with them, but he just said it looked cool, and so he signed up for it. And then it was years of toil and hardship. So it's kind of an interesting vehicle. You press pause and read that. Press pause and read that. It's got some type of pulley system, some type of recovery vehicle. A little bit of weaponry, but also it looks like a lot of functionality to go and do certain chores and jobs, and maybe move bridges around or pick things up, towing disabled tanks someplace safe where they could be repaired. There's another cool recovery vehicle. So, press pause and read that. Got a big old vise on there, all kinds of tools strapped on. I don't know if those are mortars that they can launch out of there. It's kind of interesting. This thing looks like it lifts up and then swivels around. Bunch of artillery howitzers. So you hear about these as you read about World War II. Press pause and read that. This thing says it shoots 12,205 yards, which is miles. You can Google how many yards make a mile and then do some math, divide it. 155 millimeter howitzer. You can press pause and read that. Press pause and read that. This one has a really thick barrel. This one is huge, see that? This is a 155 millimeter gun. This can shoot 25,000 yards. 1 round per minute. There's another one that's a little more complex, longer unit. Thick barrel on it. It's like 3 inches thick all the way around. 8-inch howitzer. Press pause and read that. Press pause. Life inside. Well, this tells you exactly what I was talking about, only this was during war, so it's worth. So here's a tank headgear. Press pause and read that. Try and get all of these at once. You can press pause and read that. Here's what they have. Respirators, dust respirators. So if you're one of those people that hates wearing masks right now because of COVID, you wouldn't have want to been a tank guy, because most of them wore them inside there. So this one kind of interesting. You look through this, and then you're seeing out the top. So you're seeing reflections, and you know, if you were just popping out the top and looking at it, you'd see that. But looking through that small thing, you're gonna see just a tightened view of everything. So you can press pause and read that whole thing if you want. You can press pause and read that. Press pause and read that. Interesting parts, some mortar casings. This one's been cut open so you can see how it works. There's some field rations. Something interesting. Might have worn, or what they did wear back in World War II. Another Jeep. That one has better, more comfy seats, it looks like. Transport, and you get to look through that little port to see where you're going. So here's some interesting stuff. You can press pause and read that. Press pause and read that. And then you can see some of the things that they had, some of the awards or for certain battles they were in, or ranks they achieved, and what they might have worn. Anti-tank gun. Anyway, hopefully this isn't getting too boring. So, kind of interesting little history here. You can press pause and read that. And this was a flag that was captured during the war. You can press pause and read that. You can press pause and read that. There's the gun. It looks like they all signed this Nazi flag. They all signed this Nazi flag that they captured. So I didn't even go around the other half of the room. Things are starting to kind of look a little bit the same, so I didn't want to be too repetitious, but they've got all kinds of vehicles in this one room. Let's move on. Here's the amphibious vehicles. So you can see how they would land at the beach, and then they could, if they didn't want to go up onto the beach with the vehicle, they could flip down the track and let jeeps out if they wanted, or troops, and then back off and go back to another point, or we'll go back to the ship. You can press pause and read that. Kind of interesting. Here's another one of those transporters. There's the machine gun on the top back. And then flips down. Troops or tanks or Jeeps come off. Not tanks. It'd be too heavy probably, I'm guessing. Amphibious vehicle. Kind of a sad story. Just pause and read that. If you want to read about the Louisiana boat builder who won the war, press pause and read that. If you want to press pause and read that. That's what that thing is right there. So there's the Utah beach hedgehog. They drop these out into the beaches to try and stop vehicles and boats and stuff from doing what they needed to do. So press pause and read that. And check out this. It's kind of cool. There's a canoe with a sail on it, used in a military setting. The rudder on the back. It's kind of cool, and then you can read about it here. Press pause and read that. Cool little military vehicle. Amphibious Jeep. Press pause and read that. Troop transport from that Higgins, and then you can see pictures, actual pictures from the war of them landing on the beaches and coming off. And here's some of those hedgehog metal obstructions that troops are either hiding behind or lying behind dead. Or there's a transport, looks like it's headed back out. Okay guys, well thank you for coming on that field trip with me. I hope you enjoyed it. I'm gonna end up having to break it into 2 or 3, and hopefully it wasn't too boring. I was moving around a lot. There's so many vehicles in there. I cut out all the little history stuff. There's tons of panels and walls, and there's still a whole big old wing of it that they're working on that's not open yet. But this is a cool place to come visit here in Du Bois, Wyoming, kind of the gateway to the Tetons in Yellowstone. Come check it out. There's a bunch of vehicles outside too, so I might go do that right now and add it on before this. But thanks for coming on the field trip, and I hope you enjoyed it.